Hello and welcome back to the next One Piece review and discussion. We are in for an absolutely phenomenal chapter this time around because of what Oda reveals that was set up, or at least planned now, for way back at the start of the story. Like, we have got some reveals here that stretch all the way as far back as then. Like, back in Romance Dawn, back in the East Blue, like, it was there, and we're now getting the pieces here to start making the picture of what is going on with certain characters. And this is certainly something to talk about. So, without further ado, chapter 1152. An awful day. Someone's in for a rough time here, and we will find out who very soon. But we continue with the Yamato cover story here, Pilgrimage, to carry on through the rest of Wano, and it is the delivery now of the hat Otama had made for Kawamatsu. I feel like we saw him already wearing it in the chapter before, but that could have been another one because he always kind of wears one. But this is obviously Otama's one he's made, so very nicely done there. But nevertheless, we have a chapter to talk about. So last we had left off, Eam had taken possession of Gunko because the Holy Knights were taking too long. We'll come back to that. And in showing off their full display of power and Conquerors hockey, they had started using their demonic ability of turning the giant warrior pirates, or the old giant warrior pirates, into ancient giant demonic versions of themselves that just crave power and destruction and rule. So all of the giant warrior pirates are now under Eam's control and are coming for Ja Rule's head, specifically Dorian Broggy. In the meantime, we jump back in time very briefly to Chopper having jumped down and guard pointed to save Gabon from the fall. And what was even more impressive was Luffy was able to know Chopper had jumped down without having seen Chopper. So it could be what we think is the voice of all things, and like he just had an instinctual sort of knowledge or feeling, I guess is a better word to describe it. Luffy did, of that Chopper had fallen down, because even he's questioning. He's like, "How did I know that was Chopper? Like, I know it's Chopper and someone else who's injured." But when they retrieve Chopper and obviously Gabon, the reveal is that Gabon was obviously a part of Roger's crew, and Luffy freaks out. He knew Shanks, and it all unfolds. And as Chopper is beginning to explain how bad the situation is in the Sun Realm, that's when Eam's Conquerors burst goes off. So it matches up when Eam first took control, and that's when the rest of them feel it. Luffy's like, "Chopper, save your breath, I get it. I know what's going on. I understand now. We gotta go." And everyone's in like action stations now. So we immediately pick up here. The Conqueror's blast is like just finishing, like the lightning's still in the sky, and everyone's running to the lift. And we can see Gerd is probably the only one who's going to stay at the moment of the giant to look after Loki, because Hiruden, Stanzen, Road, they're all rushing to get there, and Goldberg's like just about to get there as well. And they're like, "We're gonna go deal with this. You don't have to worry, Gerd. We're gonna finish this off. She's gonna stay and look after this filth," obviously Loki. And what we see is Gabon himself is like still obviously down for the count, and Chopper's like, "Look, I'm gonna stay and look after him." But he's managing to get some words out now, and it's like, "Look, Luffy, your Conqueror's haki is really impressive. Okay, be mindful of that, because those guys are by no means invulnerable." So Luffy's like, okay, you can count on me. I'm gonna go save Colin for you. I'm gonna save all his friends, no matter what. So we know it is the use of Conquerors that's going to be able to damage the Holy Knights. At this point, Loki's sat up now. He's had his food, he's recovered and slightly, he's obviously all hooked up. So he sat up against the tree, the big tree, and he's like, Gabon, what you've just said has now made it all click for me. You know, I wasn't able to put it into words, but my own power, I'm the only one currently left standing here who's fought those guys before, or at least took a whole bunch of damage and recovered. So he's like, look, Haruden, free me, you can use me, take me with you, and I'll help fight. And Haruden's like, you fight for Elbaf? Not a chance. Like, I'd ever take you with us. So, obviously, Haruden is sticking to his guns. Loki is a criminal. He's being chained up. He is not to be freed under any circumstances. Reveal number 1. Gabon stares at the Straw Hat and says, oh, there is another in your group who can use Conquerors Haki. Sanji rushes over, like, gets in his face and goes, is it me? I know, like, the others, like Mosshead, Jinbei, you know, they're just trying to usurp me, but it's really me, isn't it? And Gabon, with, like, the straightest face, just goes, so, swordsman, your body seems to be acclimatizing. We knew it was happening because we saw it at the end of one of, like, the King of Hell. We saw it was happening. We saw him use Conquerors. Zoro wasn't aware of it, and even he says at this point, he's like, wait, I've got Conquerors Haki. And Luffy's even like, you ooze it like all the... How do you not know you've got it? And Gabon gets even more stern here. Like, he's furious now at that response. He's like, how absurd. You know, Haki is a power that has to be understood and tamed. Your captain is one of the 4 emperors now. You know, you should be meticulous in your intent. You know, you've got to have his back here. And Zoro's like, my bad. So, confirmation now. Zoro has Conquerors. But poor Sanji, man, he can't catch a break. We can see now we have 2 Conquerors Haki users in the Straw Hats. Will the others develop it? Maybe not. But at least the main 3, or the big 3, the monster trio, should. You know, Luffy spent his time now at Rayleigh to master Conqueror's Haki. He's tamed it. Now it's Zoro's turn, which is what I think this Elbaf fight will be for him. He's going to be more aware now of this ability and to sort of bring Emma under control more will be with Conquerors. And what we see is, like, Sanji begging, like, he's like, oh man, what about me? Like, am I going to be able to? Now, Loki cuts him off here. Loki's like, Haruden, you're pathetic, you know, you'd rather just sit back and let these outsiders save us. Like, I'm right here, use me. And in the moment where, like, Loki is screaming, and Sanji's just asked this question, we see Sanji looking very stern, very, like, stoic, and he's like looking out, like it's like a brief panel where, like, he's kind of collecting himself again. And I don't think that's Oda just throwing another panel of Sanji in for no reason. It's either Gabon has said something to Sanji to be like, you know, you've got to train harder, you know, you've got to go through more, or your body, your feelings, your willpower, like who you are as a person, might never be able to wield Conquerors. Only certain individuals get it, and I think Oda's maybe trying to set it up because not everyone has Conquerors. We know the big individuals who are vying for the One Piece, who are, you know, in charge of the Marines, they're the ones who have it. We can't just give it out to everyone. But certainly, could it be developed and earned, like Gabon was saying here? You know, you got to be meticulous about it. But Haruden then keeps on the argument, and he's like, who's to say that Loki would just go and side with the government? You know, you would stab us in the back again, I just can't trust you. What you did on that day, what you did to Elbaf, to me, I how can you expect me to trust you? And we see everyone is ready to hit the lift and go back up. And Luffy comes out with an absolute blinder, but so on point for Luffy to say, "Yo, Loki, join my crew." Just looks him dead in the eye. He's like, "Yep, I don't think Hyrule can complain if you're a part of my crew and then I free you." He won't complain, right, Hyrule? So we've already got the invite straight away. Join my crew. And what a decision that would be if Loki joins. Even Zoro and Sanji are freaking out. They're like, "How are we going to get him on the ship? He's going to eat all our food supplies. Like, look how big he is. Not a chance." And we see Luffy just smiling away, being like, Elbaf doesn't want him. And he actually seems pretty okay to me. Besides, if he gets out of line, I just beat him up again. And he's like, "As if I'm going to work for you, you runt. I'm not going to be an underling to anyone." And Hyrule steps in, he's like, "You're really going off your gut here, aren't you?" And Luffy's like so excited. He's like, "I just want to know how he fights." So it'll be interesting when he does get free. And maybe, in the next 100 chapters, do we see Loki join the Straw Hat? Or at least ally with them, probably, is more likely. But we see everyone rushing towards the lift, ready to go. Hyrule's like, "Look, Straw Hat, he's a condemned criminal. I can't just free him. I'm sorry. He's got to stay here." And then just as they're leaving, Gabon pipes up again and says, "Hyrule, release Loki." And they're like, "What did you just say, Gabon? Like, hold up. Why are we releasing Loki? He is a convicted murderer of 113 castle guards, plus our father who he murdered in cold blood. He is the worst criminal our country has ever known." And it is the new Giant Warrior Pirates, like, all, like, reeling with the fact of what Gabon is asking here. And he's like, look, I get it, I know. But on that day, it was a strange emanation of haki that came from the castle. And me and Shanks went to investigate it. It's possible we don't have the whole story. And then it's like, "Wait, you were at the castle?" And Luffy's like, "What do you mean, Shanks?" And they both are like, "Right, stands in, head up without us." Luffy's like, "Zoro, Sanji, you go, I'll join you in a minute." They're all rushing off. Zoro's like, "Oh, that damn dumb Shanks again." And Luffy hears him, he's like, "Don't call Shanks dumb." So we can see Gabon is the one to be like, "Look, Loki, you're going to need to tell the story. If not to me, then at least to Hyrule. And, you may be from different mothers, but you are brothers. It is important that he knows." And he's like, "Loki, you've got 3 minutes. 3 minutes. You've got me for 3 minutes." But he's like, "Right, what happened 14 years ago? And you best tell the truth. Swear to our gods that what you say is the truth." And he's like, "That's cold, bro. That is cruel. But if you really want me to relive that day." And we can see everyone's sat like anticipating, and Loki's like covering his face. He's like, "I don't want to remember it. It was such an awful day." And we jump back 14 years ago, back when Elbaf here was bustling, and we're back in the castle. Loki like leaps from the sky and lands, and he walks into the castle, and we see Ja Rule there, and he's like, "Oh, you've been summoned as well by my father. I wonder what's going on." And he's making jokes with Ja Rule, and they seem to have a good rapport with each other, and they're discussing, what is it he wants us for. Because Loki is saying, he's now just like a government dog. Like, he's working for them. Whatever direction he takes Elbaf, all this peaceful stuff. And Ja Rule's like, "Look, my great-grandchildren won't see combat now. They'll only know peace. This is great for them. And Loki's like, just cowards, honestly. Like, whip them up into shape, give them weapons. And we can see as they reach the throne room, we see that a lot of the giants are tiny in comparison to Ja Rule and Loki here, both ancient giant ancestry. And they're like, look, we'll let the king know you're here, just let me consult with him. And Loki just kicks the door. He's like, just get out the way. And he kicks the door in at probably the worst time ever. Because a group of Elbath warriors are currently stabbing Harold through the chest. Like, it is just a shadowed man right now, but we know it's Harold. And just a bunch of spears piercing him. And Loki, Ja Rule begin to freak out, like, what is going on? And we don't carry on here. We jump over to Gabon's house, over in the realm of the sun. Further up on the tree, we can see the castle in the distance. And we see Shanks. Young Shanks is here, meeting Gabon, having a wonderful time in like a little sauna. And we see Shanks's arm. Not his right arm. We see two arms. The arm that Shanks got rid of has a mark on it. A mark just like the Holy Knights. We don't know how long Shanks had this mark. Whether he had it as a kid or later on. But Shanks is sat here, arm out, mark on his left arm. The arm he sacrifices for Luffy. Or was it the arm he deliberately got bitten off to get rid of this mark? Clever, clever man. So we can see that Shanks in some way, we won't find out properly yet, has a mark of the Holy Knights on him. That was somehow linking him to Eam, I reckon, in some way. And he needed to get rid of it. Ergo, he let the Sea King bite it off. But we see something interesting in their conversation. Gabon is like, oh, what's it been? Like 3-4 years. And Shanks is like, get real. It's been 10 years since the captain's died. And Gabon's like, whoa, that long already? Wow. Feels like forever ago then to you, huh? We've known now for a while that staying on Elbath could cause problems. Lewis Arnett gave us that when we first came to Elbath. We've now been getting more and more comments about time, specifically how long things are taking. Like, Ian came in and was like, these are taking too long. Gabon was like, it's been 3-4 years, and Shanks is like, what are you on about? It's been 10. What if time moves slower on Elbath for some reason? Maybe because it's like a big island of giants and whatever it may be. That's the correlation between why giants are hundreds of years old and really they're meant to be like 50 odd. Time moves slower here. We can see that Shanks is talking about he just wanted to be a carefree pirate with Buggy. That's all he wanted. But things changed. And Gabon says, it's understandable. You are the child of destiny. What? What do you mean, child of destiny? Like, where's this law coming from? And even Gabon's like, but we can dwell on that topic another day. Like, already Oda making jokes. Like, he just drops something about Shanks and then goes, oh, we can leave it. Destiny is following Shanks some reason, somehow. Like, he's blessed in some way. He is a child of destiny. Like, that is crazy. But they talk about Little Garden. obviously seeing Dorian Broggy back then. And we see younger Ripley appear, you know, scaring Shanks. And we can see it's like a small house and then a giant house are like connected is how they live. And he's like, well, this is really nice, you know, hanging out, having this lingoberry tart, having drinks. And she's asking Shanks about stories. And he's like, oh, I've got plenty of stories about Gabon. Like, you know that in every port we went to, there was always a bunch of, you know, how many was it, how many? And then Gabon cuts him off, like, pulls his cheek and is like, don't you dare. Like, don't even speak. So we see they talk about Harold and say, you know, he's a king, the people treat him like a god. And then even more lore revelations. Shanks goes, oh yeah, I met him at Marie-Joie, you know. We got on all right. Like, when did Shanks go to Marie-Joie? Like, what is going on? We know he was probably the son of Figaland at this point, but what is happening? But he's like, obviously we couldn't speak freely back then, so I wanted to come here and speak to him now before it's too late. And it's already too late because the massive blast of Conquerors goes off and we get the dialogue boxes to say, you know, on this day the massacre took place. The most beloved king, Harold the Benevolent, lost his life. You know, we see people dying. We see Ja Rule get pierced through the skull with a sword. And we see a chest that talks about the forbidden devil fruit that is passed down. And we see, you know, just how did this man come to be so highly regarded by his people? Well, we go back 109 years now. A flashback within a flashback. Inception flashbacks here. To see the giant warrior pirates in their heyday. You know, young, very young Dorian Broggy here. And we see that back then on the seas, giants were the most feared. You know, even seeing a giant ship was enough for Elbaf's reputation. And, you know, people were afraid, people were worried. And it is said, you know, Harold began his reign at 45 years of age. So in human terms, he was just 15. And remarkably enough, he was a pure scumbag. And we see Harold with his horns looking very demonic, just destroying castles and like kicking other like smaller giants and just causing chaos and saying, tell me, who is your god? And that is where the chapter ends. There is so much to unpack here, like the fact that we just get a reveal about Shanks' arm. You know, we're getting about what's really happening now. So the flashback of this arc is Loki explaining what happened on that day. Maybe we do get a reveal of what the fruit is, but ultimately it's going to result in Hyrule freeing Loki and they all go up to the Sun Realm. But we know now that the world government, or especially Eve, has played a part in it all. And it is just nuts that, you know, the stakes are being set here. Zorro being definitely confirmed as having Conquerors Haki. Will Sanji end up getting it? Who knows? I'd like him to. I think the trio should. Because if Rayleigh, Gabon and Rogers could, the parallels there. But nevertheless, we will find out where this chapter goes, or specifically this flashback goes, next time. Thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. Let me know what you thought of this chapter, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.